I don't know if you heard the news, but Rob Gronkowski is out for what could be up to 2 months with a disc injury in his back. He'll have surgery tomorrow. What's your immediate reaction?
This is a major blow for the New England Patriots. You're talking about Rob Gronkowski. He's a maybe 4 or 5 players in the league that nobody can really match up against. He's one of those type of players. This is a big blow for the New England Patriots in their offense. Fortunately, they have Martellus Bennett, who's a good tight end. But losing Gronk, it really that's a major issue for the New England Patriots moving forward.
See, it's interesting because when they traded Jamie Collins, I don't remember your reaction when they traded Jamie Collins. My thought was, I understand that you may want to move on from Collins in the offseason, but a guy who's a hybrid linebacker who can cover running backs out of the backfield, you get rid of him for a third-round pick next year. It screams to me that you're decreasing your margin for error. Like, they still may be able to win a Super Bowl without Jamie Collins, but it changes the margin for error because you take away a talented defensive player. And I just wonder if maybe they gambled and now you lose arguably their most talented or second most talented offensive player, and that margin for error comes even more into play.
Well, it comes into play. It was a question mark even before when you look at that New England Patriots defense and how they performed this season. It's not, a great defense. They don't have the playmakers like they've had in the past when they were winning Super Bowls. You talk about the Bruce Guerra, the Vrabel, Willie McGinnis, those type of guys, Ty Law, and, Lawyer Malloy and Rodney Harrison, those guys. They don't have those type of players right now. Letting Collins go in the middle of a season like that, maybe there were some other issues ongoing where they just said, you know what, it's better to cut bait right now, addition sort of by subtraction. But you can see that defense definitely could use him out there to make some plays for them. As far as the margin of error, it just puts more pressure on the other guys to make plays for them. They play without Gronk. I'm sure the Patriots will have a different type of scheme. They'll figure it out and say, okay, well, whether it's some receivers, maybe utilizing Edelman a little bit more, Bennett, just figuring out maybe the running backs. It's good that they got those running backs, Deion Lewis back. So they'll figure out ways to move the ball and score points, but it's still, not having Gronk, that's a major blow for them.
Yeah, and they trade away A.J. Derby, who's a converted former quarterback who caught 15 passes in the preseason. Traded him away about a month ago. He's a tight end to the Denver Broncos.
Right, he looked good the other day on Sunday night for the Broncos.
Yeah, and oh boy, we'd sure love to have that. Sure love to have that one back. London Fletcher joining us on the Doug Gottlieb Show, CBS Sports Radio. Okay, so 2 months puts us like right into the playoffs. What does this mean now in terms of you were to do your kind of power poll in the AFC? Like I like anybody else like watching the Raiders. They just have so many holes on their defense that it gives me pause as to whether or not I'm willing to buy into them being the best team in the AFC. What do we do with the AFC, considering I think most of us were operating under the assumption the Patriots were the best team before the day began?
Right, yeah. It does. You're going to have to go back to the board and say, where do we put the Patriots now? I think in the AFC you have to, have the Kansas City Chiefs up there. The Broncos, even though they lost Sunday night against the Chiefs, I still kind of have them as the best team in that AFC West. When you look at it, especially the way Trevor Siemian played,
he played
in that
great
ball game and how he's played the last few weeks. So that defense, they're going to make plays. I kind of look at the Denver Broncos as being a team, maybe second best, and then I'm gonna trust the Patriots and still have them as a number one seed in that conference, just because they'll figure out a way to get it done.
London Fletcher joining us on the Doug Gottlieb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Big topic of the week has been Jeff Fisher and what he apparently said to Eric Dickerson in a phone call. Dickerson, who, of course, I know you played for the Rams, a legendary Rams player, also traded away and ended up playing for the Indianapolis Colts at the end of his career. But Dickerson apparently has been openly critical of the coach, of management, of the quarterback coach, Chris Winkie, and he has a radio show in Los Angeles. And as you know the story, I'm sure, London, like, look,
Right.
Jeff Fisher called him and was like, hey, we'd love to have you around, but we don't want you on the sideline because, as he said, some of his players, some of his coaches, uncomfortable with some of the comments that he's made. As a former player who has a big platform, what's your takeaway from this back and forth?
Man, I couldn't believe that I heard that the Rams had, Fisher had called Eric Dickerson and told him he's not welcome on the sideline. That when you're in the professional sports, criticism is going to come. It's just part of it. Eric Dickerson is a Hall of Famer. He has a radio show, and they're going to ask him about the Rams. And the Rams are not playing good football. Jeff Fisher hasn't won games, so for Dickerson to be true to his employers who hired him to give a true opinion, he has to say what he sees. And the offense hasn't played well. The quarterback didn't play well up until they finally went with Jared Goff, and Jeff hasn't won ball games. So it's to get criticism. He should expect that and understand, hey, man, it's coming. It's fair because when you look at it, his record hasn't been great. But to say, okay, you can't come around because you're criticizing my team. You have, for me, you can't be a head coach and be that thin-skinned. You have to, not even really pay attention to it. And if I got coaches and players that are uncomfortable, I got the wrong coaches and players because you have to be mentally tough in the National Football League. And I just couldn't believe
what if
he would call him and say that.
What if I offered this to you?
On the day that they had him come to the groundbreaking ceremony for their new stadium. So you can be around our groundbreaking ceremony, but we don't want you in this capacity.
Well,
that's ridiculous.
Let me offer this though as the counter to that, London. So I would say, like, look, I know you won a Super Bowl, and I know you had a good run with the Buffalo Bills, but you're probably most known, I would think, for your time with the Redskins. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you called up the Redskins and you said, I want to be on the sideline for the game, they'd hook you up, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you went on Tops and you said things and had been invited to go to practice, to watch workouts, to do whatever you wanted to be around the franchise, and you didn't do it, and then you offered up an opinion based on what you saw on game tape as to the coaching staff, as to the players, I'm just wondering if they would be sensitive to that as well.
No, they wouldn't. I've been critical of the Redskins and things that they've done in the past, but I'll take it even a step further. In Washington, there's a ton of former Redskins players that are working in the media. Some of them even work for the Redskins for the ESPN that's owned by Dan Snyder, and whether it be Brian Mitchell or John Riggins, those guys have been critical of the Redskins, critical of the owner in the past, and they work for his radio station. So that's Dan understands. Hey, you're going to have critics, former players. They have opinion, but I think Jeff brought more attention to it than he needed to by calling Eric and telling him that. Every organization has has criticism from former players, whether it be great players, marginal players, whatever the case may be. You just understand, hey, these same players are going to also praise you and speak very highly of you when you're doing well. And I believe me, Eric Dickerson, if the Rams start to win and they're doing great and Jeff, gets things turned around, Dickerson will be, seen as praise. So that's just a part of it.
All right, let me ask you, speaking of the Washington Redskins, what would you do if you were in that front office and you had to decide about Kirk Cousins? You obviously have, I think, three options. One is franchise tag him, which is, hurts you in the cap, and and also he doesn't get the long-term guarantee, but it kind of kicks the can down the road. You could do the transitional tag, which means you'd match kind of any offer out there, or you'd say, you know what, let's sign him to a long-term deal. He's our guy for the next 3 or 4 years. If London Fletcher was in charge of his former team, the Washington Redskins, what would your choice be?
Well, it's really, I look at it as being really two choices. Either you're signing to a long-term deal or you're franchising him. Transition tag, that does not do anything for this situation. It puts the Redskins more at risk of somebody coming in and giving Kirk some type of offer that you just like, all right, we really, this is way more than we wanted to pay, and maybe they decide not to. But with the way Kirk has paid this year, they got to pay him. So they're going to pay him regardless. It's just a matter of them just understanding, hey, he bet on himself. He gambled on himself. I can applaud him for that, and he's up. He deserves a new contract, and he's going to be paid like one of the upper echelon quarterbacks in the National Football League, just based on timing. That's just the way it is. I know you follow basketball. You look at Mike Conley, and he's the highest paid player in the National Basketball League, based on signing the largest contract ever because of his timing. Is he better than LeBron James? No, but that's just the way it is. It's Kirk. Do you look at him and say, okay, he's better than Aaron Rodgers? Maybe this year you do. Andrew Luck just got $25 million. He's playing better than Andrew Luck this year. So, I mean, you're gonna pay this guy. That's just kind of how it is.